This is the Insta360 Go Ultra, and this is the GoPro Hero 13 Black. Insta360 asked me to film a comparison video between these two cameras, specifically from a mountain biker's perspective. So I mounted both of them to my helmet at the exact same time to film some reasonably scientific comparison footage. I'm going to let you be the judge as to which camera you prefer, but I'd like to highlight a few of the key differences that I've seen throughout my ride testing. Let's get into it. As always, some disclosure. This video is brought to you by Insta360. They are an official sponsor of this YouTube channel, and they sent me this Go Ultra in a factory sealed box along with reimbursing me for the purchase of this GoPro. All opinions in this video are my own, and although Insta360 has seen a preview of this video, I firmly believe in the scientific method, and I have specifically designed my test to make things as fair as possible. This is not a review, so there will be no Dale scale, but I stand behind this video as I have every other video. Thanks again to Insta360 for their continued support of my channel. We'll jump into the comparison footage shortly, but I think it's important to quickly recap what the Go Ultra aims to accomplish for mountain bikers. There are two key parts to the system, the standalone camera and what they're calling the action pod. Once you've dialed in your settings, the standalone camera is all that you truly need to bring along with you on your rides. It weighs in at a very impressive 53 grams, with a form factor that is not far off the size of an action camera battery. It can film at up to 60 FPS in 4K, with a claimed battery life of 60 minutes at 4K 30, has a wide 156-degree field of view, an external SD card slot, which is a big deal, and an ever so slightly larger sensor than their flagship Ace Pro 2. Insta360 also claims that it can produce clear audio with no wind noise, and that it has their best low light algorithms yet, both things that I'll be testing. The one accessory that I have chosen to use is the Go Ultra Action Mount. This mount retails for 13 US, 15 euros, or 19 Canadian. This action mount is what Insta360 recommends for intense activities, such as mountain biking, and features a few small rubber standoffs that help isolate the camera from external vibration. The best part, however, is that since the camera is a square, it can be installed in either landscape or portrait orientation within this mount, using the rectangular LED as a reference for which orientation you are in. To me, this is the one must-have accessory if you plan to mountain bike with this camera. If you need to recharge the standalone camera, or would like a more traditional action camera form factor, the standalone camera magnetically attaches to the action pod, boosting you up to 170 minutes of recording time at 4K 30 at a claimed weight of 161.5 grams. The action pod can also be used to control the camera completely wirelessly, which is a nice feature when you want to review clips or adjust settings without having to take off your helmet or mess with your angle. The Go Ultra retails for 450 US, 429 euros, or 600 Canadian. For reference, the GoPro Hero 13 Black is GoPro's newest and most expensive flagship camera. It can record at up to 60 FPS at 5.3K or 120 FPS at 4K, with a claimed battery life of 180 minutes, an equal claimed 156-degree field of view, and a very similar 159 gram weight. The Hero 13 Black retails for 430 US, 450 euros, or 550 Canadian. On paper, this makes these two cameras very similar as far as recording specs goes, with the Go Ultra being able to clock in at 1/3 of the weight of the GoPro, while occasionally having to recharge in its action pod. But as we know, on-paper specs and marketing language often have little impact on a product's performance. For the rest of this video, I will be flipping back and forth between full-screen, full-resolution clips from both cameras, allowing you to draw your own conclusions as educated and informed viewers. These clips are filmed between 2 and 3 hours before sunset on a south-facing slope in a relatively dark BC rainforest, which is far from ideal, but pretty representative of the majority of riding that I do. In order to keep my testing as fair as possible, I kept my settings as consistent as possible between the two cameras. I also made sure that they were both updated with their latest firmware, prior to adjusting only the following settings. Both cameras were set to film in 4K 30 at 16:9, which is my preferred setting and the highest resolution that I've seen on YouTube, at their widest field of view and their lowest level of active stabilization. Both cameras had their high bitrate option enabled, with sharpness set to low, and completely default color and audio settings, with zero adjustments made in post. The Go Ultra was set to matrix metering mode, as the default face priority mode does not make much sense for POV riding footage. But the most important part of my setup is my dual action camera mount. This allows for truly standardized testing by controlling all external variables, with only one rider riding one trail at the exact same time. Leveraging this much weight off the chin bar of my full face helmet while riding double black trails is physically demanding, but I know it's appreciated due to the significantly more scientific comparisons that it allows. Now, before we talk about what we can see, let's first talk about what we can't see, and that would be the audio quality. The audio quality is the single biggest difference between these two cameras. Let's have a listen. Alright, this is an audio test of the Insta360 Go Ultra. And this is an audio test of the GoPro Hero 13 Black. I've always maintained that high quality audio is often more important than high quality video, and here is no exception. In my opinion, the GoPro's audio is borderline unusable for a professional YouTube camera. It sounds muffled and muddy in almost every situation, but especially when it comes to talking while riding. An external mic would practically be a requirement for me to use the 𝙎𝙬�13 Black. The Go Ultra's audio isn't perfect. I think that its wind noise reduction algorithm is a bit too aggressive and has the side effect of cutting out some of the trail noise in addition to all of the wind noise. It's not quite up to the Ace Pro 2's audio quality, but that isn't a reasonable expectation at less than a third of the weight, and it is a night and day comparison to the GoPro. The Go Ultra provides completely usable and clear audio across a range of situations, and manages to record voices especially clearly throughout. Now let's move on to video. The first thing you may notice is that the 𝙎𝙬�13 has noticeably more motion blur than the Go Ultra does. For years, GoPros have been known to prefer a lower ISO at the expense of a slower shutter speed in their default settings, and this increase in motion blur is a result of that choice. It's not inherently a positive or negative, it's ultimately user preference, but it can be tweaked away with careful settings, and it's definitely worth noting. Despite both cameras having the same field of view on paper, the GoPro manages to produce a slightly wider video, albeit at the expense of stabilization. This makes sense, as stabilization is ultimately just a factor of how far you have to crop in on the sensor's raw output. The wider vertical field of view on the GoPro is nice, as it allows you to see more of the handlebars in the shot, but the stabilization of the Go Ultra makes for a significantly smoother viewing experience, especially in lower light conditions as we'll discuss later. Ultimately though, it is personal preference which trade-off you prefer. What isn't a trade-off, however, is the level of distortion present in the image. The Go Ultra manages to keep all of the trees pretty darn straight, even out to the extreme corners of the image, which is impressive for a 14mm focal length in such a tiny camera. By comparison, the GoPro image is highly distorted in not only the corners, but across the entire frame. You can see that the trees bend in the corners, and when performing a quick pan rotation in a tight corner, for example, the entire frame has some non-linear distortion present, where different objects in the frame will move across the screen at different speeds, despite the camera rotating as a whole. The Go Ultra is the clear winner for me as far as reducing image distortion goes. I also believe that the Go Ultra manages to capture slightly more detail across the entirety of the frame. Both cameras have an acceptable sharpness in the center of the frame, with the GoPro even having a slight edge here. But the GoPro's resolving power drops off significantly when you move to the edges and corners of the frame. This shows up as a blurrier image, with it being harder to resolve small details such as branches or leaves, and high contrast edges appear fuzzy with noticeable bloom from the brighter background. The Go Ultra provides a much more uniform sharpness across the entire image, with its resolving power falling off noticeably less severely toward the edges and corners of the frame. Thankfully, neither camera appears to display any signs of chromatic aberration or purple fringing. In terms of colors, I prefer the default colors from the Go Ultra, as I found them to be slightly more representative of the actual lighting when I recorded these videos. The GoPro image is slightly too warm in my opinion, with a subtle purple tint that helps de-emphasize all of the different shades of green in the rainforest. Both cameras produce an image that is a bit too flat for my tastes, so I would definitely bump up the saturation in post, but I would also have to white balance the GoPro footage as well. The Go Ultra appears to have a wider dynamic range than the GoPro in its default settings too. Both cameras appear to have a similar black point set, but there are portions of highlights in the videos that are completely white on the GoPro, but the sky is slightly blue or gray on the Insta360. Dynamic range also plays a big role in mountain biking specifically, because we often encounter huge swings in contrast between sunny and shady spots in the forest. While both cameras are usable here, the Go Ultra manages to control the image a little bit better in this regard, and almost as well as the Ace Pro 2. For battery life, the ride that you were watching was a 3-hour and 5-minute ride that climbed and descended an even 1,000 meters of elevation, which is an extremely average ride for me. Of that 3 hours, exactly 29 minutes were spent descending, which is almost exactly half of the claimed battery life of the standalone Go Ultra. A lighter camera is undeniably more comfortable to ride with, and since I have a personal rule of never adjusting my settings on the trail, I found that I have no issues bringing along only the standalone camera and leaving the action pod at home entirely. This made the Go Ultra extremely unintrusive in both weight and size, with a battery life that is more than sufficient for all of the longest rides that I do. Of course, the GoPro had no issues with battery life either, but it does weigh exactly 3 times as much, well, serving the exact same intended purpose for me. The last point would have to be low light performance. Both cameras did a commendable job for how dark the end of this ride got, but I think that the Go Ultra did a slightly better job, especially when it came to stabilization. Under heavier impacts and quick changes in direction, GoPro's hyper smooth stabilization would struggle keeping the frame as steady as the Insta360 could, and would also have a more robotic feeling panning and rolling keyframe style motion as well. The The Go Ultra's flow state stabilization did a great job and really didn't seem to care much how bright or dark the overall scene was. In terms of noise, I did not ride in dark enough conditions to truly push the limit here, but from what I saw, both cameras did not concern me. Modern camera sensors have gotten pretty darn good. So where does this leave me? Well, I will be sticking with my Ace Pro 2 as my main camera, as the magnetic vertical to horizontal mount is the most convenient mount I've ever seen for switching between landscape and portrait shots, and the hardware level wind guard produces the best audio quality I've ever heard from an action camera so far. I also rely on my equipment to make a living, and being able to bring multiple batteries on my rides is a huge safety net for ensuring that I always get the shot. But the Go Ultra is a seriously compelling product, and if I wanted to film my riding as a hobby rather than a job, this is the camera that I would buy with my own money. It's very impressive just how much technology Insta360 has managed to pack into such a tiny package, and its small form factor is super unintrusive in a variety of different mounting locations. If the Go Ultra was able to deliver video quality on par with GoPro's flagship camera at a third of its weight, I'd call it a success, but I actually prefer the Go Ultra's footage overall in today's side-by-side comparison. The higher sharpness, lower distortion, and incomparable audio quality all make the Go Ultra a serious contender when it comes to the premium action camera space. But ultimately, it's up to you. Let me know in the comments below what you think about the footage from both cameras, and thanks again to Insta360 for sponsoring this video.